Good afternoon. I'm Hyunchul Park, CEO of Lotte Property and Development, in charge of Lotte World Tower. We held the grand opening ceremony with 10 million Seoul citizens in April last year. From now on, I'd like to introduce the birth and the growth of Lotte World Tower, a future vertical city that is leading a new comprehensive lifestyle in Seoul, Korea. We put a lot of thought and imagination to create the complete version of Lotte Tower for a long time. 20 years after project planning, the construction began in 2011 with the placement of super large mat foundation. As the first super tall building in Korea, there were so many obstacles that we needed to overcome. In spite of so many hardships, the completion of Lotte Tower was possible, thanks to the capabilities and the passion of Lotte Group. Since the establishment of Lotte Confectionery in 1967, Lotte Group has led various fields, including retail, hotel service, chemical, and construction, and enrich the people's lives by providing superior products and services that customers love and trust. Lotte has also made inroads into around 30 countries in the world, including Asia and Europe, and achieved a total revenue of $90 billion in last year as a result of active businesses proving its status as Korea's Big Five. Lotte Group has accumulated its core competencies and global business know-how from different business sectors in the past 50 years. The result of integrating those over 30 years is the birth of Lotte World Tower. I mentioned the Lotte Tower earlier as a vertical city that offers a comprehensive lifestyle. Lotte Tower is designed to perform various functions so it can give variable memories to those who experience the tower. It is a comprehensive space that offers not only shopping, but also entertainment, food and drinks, and high-quality cultural facilities all together. The glassed floor observation deck and the double-deck elevator won 3 Guinness records with the height, travel distance, and speed. Lotte Tower's residence proposes premium living style in the sky. It also has a Signature Seoul, a top-class hotel, Lotte Duty Free, the biggest duty-free shop representing Asia. Avenue, the largest luxury department store in Korea, and the aquarium, the sea in a city. One of our missions is to provide various experiences so that the visitor can live with their own memories. Lotte Tower is also wide open for new product showcases of companies or collaboration, marketing with the global corporate. Skyline by International Skylining Federation and tall climbing by world champion Jain Kim are presenting unforgettable and touching moments to the people around the world. At the Lotte Tower, visitors can also easily enjoy inspirational artworks such as Possibilities and the Diver. Sokchon Lake, connected to the tower, organized various public art projects, including Love Dog and Supermoon. Rather than seeing the tower as just a building, we try to identify it within the relationship with the local community. As a result, we had to consider traffic and environment issues altogether. We established an underground pedestrian road that connects Lotte Tower to promote convenience for the public transportation. One of the features we take pride in is the fact that the tower itself is eco-friendly. Without explanation, you can imagine that Lotte Tower was created with the sweat and efforts of countless individuals. Its design concept was fine-tuned 50 times. To turn this concept into reality, 5 million people worked in a high altitude quietly yet steadily, even on rainy and snowy days. To appreciate the effort of everyone who contributed to build the tower and remember their hard work, we set up a wall of fame, engraving all workers' names at the tower's main gate plaza. Lotte Tower is now achieved 100 million cumulative visitors only 6 months after its grand opening. As I have mentioned, we want Lotte Tower to become an open platform, both online and offline, that present happy memories to everyone. There is a Korean saying that reads, seeing once is better than hearing 100 times. As the Lotte World Tower is now taking its first step, I'd like to invite you to the tower. We hope to communicate with the members of the council and enjoy mutual development together. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Mr. Park. Am I mic'd in? Yeah. And very courageous of you to give this presentation for 10 minutes in English. So very well done. So I want to place some of what Mr. Park said in the context of architectural design, the craft of architecture, as well as some issues of urban habitat, of urban design, and larger urban planning. So we know this is 555-meter tower is quite an achievement of engineering and construction. Les Robertson and Satine C here in the audience. I want to thank them for their contribution to the thinking about the structure and the way it was executed. But I want to talk about something broader than the height of the building, and that has to do with the multiplicity of uses, the fact that it is virtually a vertical city, and that it is something of a city within a city, and that like the tree which nourishes itself from the ground, that there is a connectivity to transportation systems, to a subway system, to a multimodal bus station connection, and to a strategy of urban design, which then comes into the strategies to make the upper areas of diverse function combinations, both in the base of the building and the tower. So this is not merely a matter of tower design. The tower is about 3 million square feet. The base is another 2 million square feet. But they are all thought of together, both programmatically in terms of circulation and in terms of business sustainability and also in terms of architectural design. So the tower itself has 7 or 8 different functions, including healthcare, including retail below, but also office, residential, conferencing, hotel, and a kind of public entertainment at the top. But that's only the tower, which you see here. The principle here of the placement of the tower and the reason for existence of the tower has to do with a city that is a many series of sub-cities. Seoul is, as those of you who know it, vertiginously or vertically challenged to the degree maybe only that Hong Kong and maybe Rio are. So perforce, it's a series of sub-centers cradled within mountains, and this has created then a series of different areas that correspond to each other, with each other, by transport, but they serve a little bit on their own as sub-centers. So this theme of the multinodal city, which will be the theme around which the Council on Tall Buildings will gather in Dubai some months to come, is critical to this project. And so the relationship of this site, both in its density and architectural form and function, to the older center of the city, which you see here in this diagram, to Namsan, which is the older center tower, rather mountain zone of the city around which the palace is built. That relationship, an axial relationship, is inscribed into the building form as a kind of cleft in this tall, tapered form. It aims itself towards the Namsan Tower, towards Gyeongbok Palace. We can see that in the site plan. You see a diagonal running through the tower, which is on the lower left. Also, part of the mixed use and mixed environment aspect of this building is that it is not only a series of built forms, but there also is a park, which is maybe a 10-hectare park, which is public property, but its edge is part of the private property, and a 7-lane road separating this site from the park has been submerged and subverted in order to create a kind of binding and synergistic relationship between this project and the park. And here you can see the way there is this sort of balance between green, water, tower, base. It's seen in a sort of holistic way. Now, the vertical sequence of elements that march up through the building and the base could be likened in this diagram to its half-kilometer of urban passageway, urban sequence. Here it's compared to a series of London squares and public spaces which run along or adjacent to Regent Street. So you can make this comparison in your mind to an urban sequence in a building, an urban sequence in a city, and you see here diagrammed in a number of different colors. And you see the way the tower and base, the sort of skyscraper and ground scraper, are working together. They are, as I said, conceived together, and the tower is in a way but another element of this composition. So the curvature of the taper of the tower, which I'll get to in a minute, and the curvature of cinemas, of restaurants, and of cultural functions makes a kind of ensemble. This then, very important, as we all know, the way that the public realm is celebrated or facilitated by such a large project is critical, and not often that we'll look after. In this case, it's about the same quantum or more as the public space at the base of Rockefeller Center. It's a series of scooped, curved spaces that work their way around tower, through base. And then they work both outdoor and indoor in publicly accessible passageways up to not only the tower, but to the platform top of this base, where, if you could see on the sort of center right side, is this part of the section, which is a concert hall for 2,000 people. This has the highest acoustical value or performance of any concert hall or any public venue in Asia, with the exception of Suntory Hall in Tokyo. That's very significant. You see here a view of this building, sort of building on top of a building, part of this high-rise structure, on the 8th floor, where pre and post function one can spill out. And then inside, this is before performance, so you don't see the 2,000 people, but this is part of this composition of this high-rise structure. And so that's already in operation, home to the Seoul Symphony Orchestra. And then we back up here to look at the way in which this ensemble of buildings sits within its context. Now, the density of this part of Seoul is slated to grow from, let's say, FAR 3 overall. Obviously, the tower zone is more, but the neighborhood to FAR of 6. So in a way, the tower is a precursor to the densification of the neighborhood, to the fulfillment of a multinodal city, which Seoul would do best to emulate and is in its downtown areas of Myeongdong or Yeouido or other neighborhoods. But it's critical that this neighborhood of Jamsil also follow suit. So the tower is in a way aspirational to lead and then allow a sloping of various surrounding sites to fulfill that density in the future. Now the tower itself, as you've seen, is a very gradually curved elevational form in section, in structure. That kind of sensibility of form, it came after about a 20-year search of this client for the right sort of expression of architecture, and it related to a series of traditional Korean arts and crafts, here shown in the celadon vase or the taper of a Korean brush of calligraphy. And that idea of curvature was brought not only to the outside of the building, but to a series of sectional maneuvers, which made public and semi-public spaces that move their way up the tower. Here you see at the base of the building, the two-story lobby, which works then with the double-deck elevator system for the main functions of the building, including shuttle elevators that give one this sort of scooped, lathed profile of the inside of the building. I won't go through all the functions. Mr. Park has shown some of those in passing. But when it gets to the top of the building, it then culminates in a 6-story sequence, a suite of public observation and entertainment functions. So this is very much about public access. And I think the principle which we're aware of and we all practice, whether it is in London, Sydney, Hong Kong, Shanghai, or here in Seoul, is at the top of such a structure, as it attains this kind of public importance, it kind of becomes a symbol for the city or for the nation, should be more than a private function. It should be a publicly accessible and almost visually transparent set of uses. The tapering of the building, which you see here with the clouds passing by as we look up, this unusual form which moves from more of a square below to a circle at the top, is articulated in its facade with a series of mullions and fins which graduate in their girth or their dimension 6 times as we move up the building. So almost like a natural figure of the bone in a bird's wing or the vein in a leaf of nature, there is a kind of supple graduation of form to match dimension, height, and place within the building. And you can see this here just for a piece of the tower at the mid-level, the way in which these vertical shades are posted out from the building. The environmental function of the building is very important because it's such a signal tower in Seoul, Mr. Park mentioned. Over 14.5% of the energy used in the building is generated by wind power, photovoltaic, but also by heat exchange over 10 miles of geothermal piping underground. It's a huge site, and temperature exchange to the water in the Han River. The structure I won't go into much except to say that it is an 8-column, mega-column system, but these columns are transferring, or rather sloping, in 2 curved dimensions, so quite unusual. Nothing comes down to the ground straight. They're supported by a 6.5-meter deep mat, so another 1.5 meters deeper than the mat of the Burj Khalifa, and one that engaged a pouring lining up 53,000 trucks in a 1.5-2-day period to pour this extensive mat. And so all of that allowed for this unusual structure from a culture of companies, of construction companies, broadly speaking, which was responsible for the building of the Burj Khalifa, of the Taipei 101, of the Petronas Towers, but now Korea expressing its own kind of national destiny in making this building. So to finish, the top of the building, the delicacy of the form, and you see here some of the rotor wind turbines, is of vital importance to the meaning of the architecture. It's the idea that the tapering of something could be almost infinite in its sensibility, and that in this multinodal city, the building would attain almost the importance of the mountainscape, of the rising and falling of subcenters, to be able to mark in an elegant way this piece of the city. Thank you very much.